Very welcome to everyone. Welcome to the session, the webinar on shea butter, possibly the most important wild ingredients in cosmetics. At first, some basic rules, or that we cannot see or hear you, so we will have to ask you to ask your questions via using the question tab on the right of your menu. And we will answer today your questions and maybe or a selection of questions. This session will be recorded and will be published on our website, so you can also share it or review it later. And at the end, there will be a short survey. I will start introducing you to our presenters of today, which is Andrew Jones, who specializes in training and coaching small and medium-sized companies to successfully export cosmetic ingredients to the European market. He's also a co-writer for the CBI market studies in the natural ingredients for cosmetics sector. He will introduce himself later on more. Yes, and we're very proud to introduce also our guest speaker, Shalom Lloyd. Very welcome, Shalom. Very glad that you can be here. Shalom is the founder of Naturally Tiwa Skincare. She's based in the United Kingdom, and she currently imports most of her shea butter from Nigeria. So we're very happy that she's willing to share her expertise with us. For the agenda for today, we'll start with my opening remarks, of course, and I'll do a brief introduction on CBI. Then Andrew and Shalom will start their presentations on shea butter origins, on shea butter used in cosmetics, what is the competitive space, what are the opportunities for exporters, and then we have like 15 to 20 minutes for questions and answers. So again, as a reminder, please ask your questions via the questions tab in the right, in the menu on the right of your screen. The CBI is a Center for the Promotion of Imports from Developing Countries. We are part of the Netherlands Enterprise Agency, and we are funded by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Our mission is to support the transition towards inclusive and sustainable economies. We strengthen the social, economic, and environmental sustainability of small and medium enterprises in developing countries, mostly by connecting them to European and regional markets and European buyers. So with that work, we promote and create decent jobs, and we pay special attention to women and youth. Currently, we can start new projects in these countries, mostly African countries. As you see, all of the Sahel region, and almost the entire line of countries where shea butter can be grown. And we're active in 13 sectors at this moment. 3 of them are natural ingredients sectors, natural ingredients for cosmetics, natural ingredients for health products, and natural food additives, and also other sectors that you see here. 2 main pillars of CBI are the CBI projects. With the CBI projects, we identify economic opportunities for local small and medium-sized enterprises on the international markets, and we help these companies to with their export ambitions. We focus on sustainable production and export, and work on long-term sector development. It's always 4-year programs. You can go to our website, cbi.eu/projects, to look what projects we have. Here you can see we have an active shea project in Nigeria. I know some of the participants of the project are now joining our webinar as well. And we have the CBI market information. If the market information is available for all SMEs in developing countries, it's especially made for them, but it's available for free for everyone. It's easy to access on our website, and our studies answers questions such as which countries offer the opportunities for a project or service, what channel should you use to enter the market in your sector, and what laws and requirements must you follow, what needs your product to comply with. You can check our website, cbi.eu/market information, and then you can go to the natural ingredients for cosmetic sector, and you see that we have all kinds of studies about entering the market, but also about specific products and how to export them to Europe. Okay, then this was the introduction on CBI. I will now give the floor to Andrew.
Okay, thank you, Thomas. I'll just
make Andrew the presenter.
Activate. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Great, okay. Well, thank you for the introductions, Thomas, and thank you to everyone for attending this webinar about sheabutter, possibly the most important wild ingredient used in cosmetics. And it is my great pleasure to be presenting this with Shalom Lloyd, and who has a very interesting and exciting business involving sheabutter plus many other things, as we'll get to find out during this webinar. So we're going to go ahead and start. We've heard already the agenda from Thomas. It's a bit about myself. As Thomas mentioned, I'm a CBI consultant. I've been doing this now for 20 years. Before I became a consultant, I used to work for the Body Shop, and actually, really interestingly enough, my priority project at that time was the sheabutter from the Tungtea Association in Ghana. And so I've been working with sheabutter for many years, and so it's really great that we have this webinar today about sheabutter, a really amazing ingredient for using in cosmetics. And I've worked in many countries for CBI and other agencies, and I'm currently living in Colombia. So for me, it's 8 o'clock in the morning, and for anyone else like in Europe, it's like 2 o'clock. But wherever you are in the world, welcome to this webinar. I'll let Shalom quickly introduce herself. Please go ahead, Shalom.
Hi, Andrew. Can you hear me all right? I hope people can hear me okay.
Yes, I can hear you great. Thanks.
That's wonderful. If you could please bring up all the points on the slide, that's absolutely fine. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me. My name is Shalom Lloyd, and I'm here in my capacity as the founder of an amazing skincare brand based in the United Kingdom called Naturally Tiwa Skincare. I am, first of all, a mother of 5 amazing children. I've spent the last 27 years in drug development in the pharmaceutical industry. I'm a pharmacist by qualification, so STEM is very, very important to me. I'm also one of the UK Department of Business and Trade Export Champions. I have sat on a few boards, and I'm honorary professor of professional practice at the University of Buckingham here in the UK. Again, thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to this discussion, and I completely agree with yourself, Andrew, and what Thomas has said about Shea being one, well, we'll say it's one. It is the, in my opinion, most important ingredient in the cosmetic industry. I am a bit biased. I'm obsessed with that ingredient. So yeah, I'm glad to be here. When I talk about Naturally Tiwa Skincare, sorry.
Yeah.
Next slide.
No, could you please go? Yeah, please tell us about your company a little bit. I've got some slides here, so please tell us about the origins of your company and yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that, Andrew. As I mentioned, I'm a pharmacist by qualification, and I spent most of my life in the pharmaceutical industry. So the cosmetic industry wasn't really on the cards for me. But after 4 cycles of IVF and having my twins, and one of them born with eczema, and me in search for a natural remedy for his skin condition, I basically tapped into my African roots and part of my African heritage, mixed in my kitchen, really, and wanting to do 3 things: reduce his inflammation, reduce the redness, and reduce the itching. And shea butter became the base for what I call my Eureka formulation. I like to call it that. When I stumbled across that right formulation, and Joshua's skin started to become what it should have been from birth. And that was really the birth of Naturally Tiwa Skincare. That was really how my company started.
Great, an amazing story. Thanks, Shalom. Yeah, so I know you've got a few also where you can find your products in the UK and elsewhere.
Absolutely. I think, as I mentioned, and I'll keep saying this over and over again, forgive me, shea butter is the base of everything we do. So we're proudly sort of shea using skincare brand. You can find our products on our website. We're proud to be stocked in Harrods Beauty in Milton Keynes and on harrods.com, and a few other channels as well, and shopping channels here in the UK and a few garden centers. So our products are out there. Our products are used by a lot of people. So it's just to give that sort of reassurance that as an end user, we're only a small company, we're still an SME, but for companies like ourselves, share is really critical, and share is really, really important. It's okay to talk about, larger organizations, but I think hopefully this will show you that there are different sizes of organizations who rely on shea butter for their products.
Yes, thank you. Yes, and obviously that's your consumers, as we'll get to find out during the presentation, also love your products and love the ingredients like shea butter that go into your products.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Great. Well, thank you, Shalom, for the introduction about your company and your history. So now we're going to go to the next part of the presentation, which is, if I can go forwards and not backwards. 1 second. See if that's working. Hang on a second. I wonder, let me do that. Here we go. Yeah, so we're talking about shea butter. Now, the way this talk is being structured, we're going to talk a little bit about, the origins of shea butter, this amazing ingredient. And, and it started off life as a village industry. And but what's amazing about this village industry is that it extends across this northern part of Africa, from Senegal all the way across to Ethiopia in the east, and so 21 countries have shea trees growing, and there are an estimated 2 billion trees. And so we're talking about a village industry, but it's at a kind of a huge scale. And as we know, and many of you I know in the audience are from these countries, and you're here to find out about the opportunities for shea butter in the European and international market. So much of this is probably already familiar to you, but it's just always astonishing that this is an amazing tree that grows naturally and wild across these countries. Now, of course, there are efforts being taken place to restore and plant more shea trees, because there is an issue about the concerns about encroachment and loss of shea trees. But actually, using in cosmetics, and when you think about cosmetics, we think about fats like cocoa butter and coconut and palm oil, and these are all plantation type products, but shea butter is coming from these trees that grow across this extent of Africa, and 3 million square miles of territory, it's estimated, where shea grows. And the other amazing thing about this village industry is that it starts off at the village level as a unit, and there are now so many hundreds of thousands of villages involved in the collection of shea nuts, and 16 million women collectors for whom this is a very important or main source of income for them. And they're collecting, it's been estimated, and I've also got some data to back that up, around or more than 800,000 tons of shea nuts per year. So here we have this village industry. When you go to a village and they're making shea butter, traditionally it's a village industry, but it extends vastly across so many countries and involving so many people. And that's one of the amazing things about this ingredient. Not only does it really work on the skin, but it has this great sort of social structure that is associated with it. So there are many benefits that go back to the communities who are involved in the production of shea butter, whether it's collection for shea nuts or whether it's actually but I'm not saying that all butter is made in villages. Of course, we know it's not, but the source, the collection of the shea nuts is a really real industry. So just to continued a little about, I mean, Shalom's already touched on this amazing ingredient. It has a traditional use, of course, in Africa. It's used in foods, it's used in medicines. It is used for skin treatments, as was mentioned by Shalom. Also, it's used for extreme dry skin conditions. So it has this authenticity about its use as well. It's used for skin rashes, it's used for stretch marks, it's conditioning the skin, and it's also used as a great massage oil. Now, it really is an effective emollient, a really great emollient that is one of the most effective ingredients found in cosmetics. And like I said, it has this amazing origins, and now it's used all over the world, nearly many cosmetic products.
Andrew, can I just add in here?
Please, of course, Shalom, go ahead.
Can I just interject here? I think I'm guessing that majority of the attendees of this webinar, are from the African continent, and I think this ingredient is one that we should be extremely proud of, one that we should extremely nourish and take care of. When you look at that belt, where the shea trees grow, like you talked about, Andrew, it's absolutely incredible and amazing. And the demand for this is growing by the day, by the month, by the year. Everything that you talked about, I can certainly relate to. Growing up in Nigeria, it is used for massaging babies, the safety of it. Traditionally, it has been used for arthritic pain. This is an ingredient that is so versatile. And the number you talked about, let's think about that. 16 million rural African women who rely on shea butter or shea as a source of income. This is something that we need to actually invest time and effort into.
Fantastic, thank you. Thanks, John, really great. So there's on the one hand, there's a great story about why use shea butter, how it's used, the origins, the benefits it brings to so many millions of people across Africa. And like I said, there is some management of these shea trees that takes place to try and increase the population of trees. But there are some issues because these trees are facing threats. There is over exploitation for timber and for making charcoal. There is agricultural encroachment, and there is population growth. And it's estimated that over 8 million shea trees are lost each year. Now, okay, so there are billions of trees, but let's not get complacent. I mean, 8 million shea trees is a lot of shea trees, and with the demand that's increasing, as you'll see, it's important that this tree, as also Shalom has alluded to, is protected and cared for and used because the demand is growing. And they're also, to give the whole context about this particular ingredient in cosmetics, there are also concerns over in certain countries, in some countries, use of child labor, discriminatory behavior with the workers, and concerns over health and safety. And these issues are now even more prominent, especially with pending European legislation on the due diligence in sustainability for companies, as well as, of course, let's forget the consumers already have high expectations of these aspects in the supply chain. They want to see, a very good level of environmental protection, very good, no issues with human rights. That's also a consumer expectation, and now it's in the process of becoming law with Europe, and therefore European companies are going to have to be taking a much more detailed look at the supply chains and to ensure that these issues, these concerns, are not in place.
Andrew, if I can just add here as well, just before you go into the data piece. I mean, we've talked about the importance. Hopefully everybody's kind of agreeing with the importance and high economic and commercial value of the shea trees, and these are being cut down and used by local communities as firewood and other sort of resources. And there was an increase in the felling of trees during COVID. So for a buyer like myself, I want to see that the suppliers that I'm working with are actually actively doing something about it to impact this 8 million trees that are being lost year on year. And that is extremely important. That speaks to sustainability.
Mm-hmm.
It really does.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Thanks, Shalom, for that. So now moving into some data which I collected from the ITC trade map, and it's really interesting. And we talked about the increase in demand, but here we can see it in the numbers. So this graph, which is lots of curves on it, but it shows the I've got here like 8 countries, and from who are exporting this particular one. To be precise about this, I'm using the HS code 151590. That is a generic code for quite a few vegetable oils that are not specified under the HS code system. But when we look at countries like Ghana, Burkina Faso, Mali, Togo, Cote d'Ivoire, Benin, Nigeria, and Senegal, this is probably, and it's not a certainty, most likely to be shea butter. So that's kind of an assumption that I've made with this chart. But here we have the top 3 exporters: Ghana in the blue line, then Burkina Faso in the orange line, and Benin in the green line. You see that the trend is, well, it's up with Ghana. Also, I should say that these exports include exports within the region. So Burkina Faso might export to Ghana, Benin might export to Ghana. This is each country's exports. But when we look at all the countries taken together, you just see that curve, and then the dotted line is my trend line. And in 2017, the number is 80 million euros worth of exports of this particular 151590 shea butter. Yeah. And then we get to 2022 and it's 160 million. So in 5 years, sales have doubled, which is an incredible growth rate. That's 14% per year. And when you compare that to the cosmetic industry average, now I know it's not all used in cosmetics, it is used in foods as well, but it's high, it's growing, the demand is growing. And so that's great for those people who are already in shea. That's great for you. And it also presents opportunities for new companies to come in, because the growth is so much that maybe there are buyers out there looking for new suppliers. So it's really a positive story about the demand for shea butter. So internationally now, I mean, we had the shea belt in Africa, but now you can see that these countries that I've colored in blue are the main destination markets. So more than 20 countries are importing more than €1 million worth of shea butter from the shea producing countries. And you see the darker blue are the most important countries. So here we have the top importers are Malaysia, Netherlands, France, Belgium, and the USA. And as I stated, the primary use is in food as a cocoa butter equivalent, and it's estimated that 90% of shea butter is used for this purpose, and therefore 10% is used in cosmetics. But that 10%, as we will see, can have an amazing impact on communities in the producing countries, as well as it's obviously a fantastic ingredient. So I got a bit more detail on the data for you here. This is a chart again from ITC data looking at shea butter exports in 2022, although the number in red there for Ghana is because the ITC don't have data after 2019. I don't know why, but that's how I presented it. So you see that 80 from those 6 countries, 84,000 tons of shea butter was exported in 2022, and you can do an approximation to how much that is as a shea nut. So it's 167,000 tons of shea nuts, and the main markets for this are, so Ghana is exporting most to Denmark, Belgium, Netherlands, Cote d'Ivoire, Netherlands, China, Korea, Mali, Malaysia, Senegal, USA, Nigeria, Malaysia, India, Niger, Burkina Faso, France, Ghana, Malaysia, and Togo, Malaysia, Ghana, Netherlands. So you can see there are some, we see the top countries there mentioned a few times, Netherlands, Malaysia, but also France is an important importer from Burkina Faso. Then we look at shea nut exports. There's some data on that, and again, the data may not be 100% reliable. I have to add that disclaimer, but we see here for 2022, again, no data for Ghana, so I've used the data from 2019. Then we have Ivory Coast, Mali, Nigeria, and that's 655,000 tons of shea nuts, which equates to, using a rough 50% conversion rate, as 327,000 tons of shea butter. And then when you add the two together to get this data of 800,000 tons of shea nuts, you can see there it's 823,000 tons of shea nuts exported per year, which equates to, again, 40, and let's focus on the cosmetics here, 40,000 tons of shea butter estimated to be used in the cosmetic industry worldwide, which is a fantastic number, and like I said, creates amazing positive impacts and benefits for communities in producing countries. And here are the countries that most are buying these shea nuts. So we've got Denmark, India, Turkey, Denmark, China, Burkina Faso, Ghana, Singapore. So again, you can see some common threads. Those are the top 3 importing countries. So in summary, this section is all about, well, this is an amazing supply chain. It's a village industry, but on a mega scale. We're talking 800,000 tons of shea nuts. We're talking 16 million women collectors. So, it is an amazing supply chain, an amazing industry. But okay, so it goes into cosmetics, but why and what and how? So we've now got a little bit of a section about that, and it's also where Shalom will come in with her expertise with her company that is using high percentages of shea butter. So just a bit of data for those of you who are exporting already to the cosmetic industry or want to export into the cosmetic industry. The name that goes on the label of cosmetic products is butyrospirnopaki butter. That's shea butter, and there are also many other derivatives that are made from shea butter. For example, you have derivatives that are more like soap, not rather than like a butter, and so different derivatives are available for use in cosmetics. It is it's been used for many decades. It's tried and tested, and notwithstanding the historical traditional use in Africa, it's safety tested, and established brands are using it. Up and coming brands all use shea butter, and more, as you can see from the demand, we can extrapolate and make an assumption that that increase of 14% a year also relates to a certain extent to to cosmetics. And so more and more shea butter is being used in the cosmetic industry. And so today we're going to talk about the 10% that's used in the cosmetic industry. So now I'm going to hand over to Shalom, who's going to give us a bit more detail about how shea butter is used in her products.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Andrew. Hopefully you can still hear me okay. I love this slide because hopefully by now, people have no doubt in their minds about the importance of this amazing ingredient. I saw somebody in the audience had put this ingredient is pure gold for Africa. It certainly is.
Wow. It
certainly is pure gold. As long as in Africa it is done right and to quality. And it takes a village about everybody coming together to impact some of the things we've already talked about, could negatively impact the industry. So why do I use shea butter? I'm one of those up and coming brands that Andrew mentioned in the previous slide. I talk here about ancestral beauty. It's back to that heritage, tried and tested. This ingredient has been used in Africa for generations and generations. In some cases, it can be a rite of passage. I've seen it being done in small villages, and it's wonderful to watch. And it is food. It is, you know, for me, what you put on your skin is as important as what you eat. In the cosmetic industry, the skin absorbs, is the largest organ in our body. It absorbs over 60% of what we put on it. Shea butter is an incredible moisturizer. Whether it's refined or unrefined, it is an amazing moisturizer. It is packed, as we know, with its anti-inflammatory properties, antioxidant effects, etc. But one of the great facts about shea butter that I love is the fact that it's one of the few ingredients out there that's a humectant, an occlusive, and an emollient all in one. Basically, one of the few ingredients that will attract and retain moisture in your skin, and it will create that skin barrier to prevent skin water loss, and of course, an emollient to smooth and soften the skin and fill the cracks between the cells. So this is, for me, one of the greatest things about shea butter and why I use it as a base for all my products. And the amount of shea butter we use for my brand is quite unusual, actually, because people use smaller percentages, but we use a higher percentage. Next slide, please, Andrew, if you may. This is my skincare brand, Naturally True Skincare. So it's, for me, it's really, again, back to sustainability. We describe ourselves as a sustainable brand. Quality is really, really important. And as shea is the main ingredient, authenticity, transparency, commitment to sustainability is part of our brand story. Next slide, please. Now, these are some of our products that we have out there, not all of them, but just a handful of them. Our Yara body food contains over 80% of it is shea. Our body polish over 71%. Our Oji body scrub, I've got one here, it's over 60%. Our cleansing balm, our facial cleansing balm is about 10% because it goes on the face. Our Iya body food, 76%, and our Agu body food. This is really just to show you that we might be a smaller company, but the quantity of shea that we use in every single product is very high. So there is a demand from small, medium to large organizations. It is our main ingredient. And that's really why I'm here today. I wanted to do this webinar with Andrew because I am really passionate about this ingredient. You've seen what Andrew presented in terms of where the trees grow in the belt in Africa. My goodness, that is something to be really, really proud of. But we have to think about what we're doing, why we're doing it, and how we're doing it from a supplier perspective. Next slide, please, Andrew.
Next slide is, yeah, I was just going to say actually to the audience listening, I mean, well, most of you are involved in the export of an ingredient, and here we're talking to Shalom, who is an expert in not only the sourcing of it, but also the manufacture of the final product. And if you ever get to talk to a final product manufacturer, I mean, you should be looking at this as a reference that potentially you can use up to like 80% or obviously 100% for a pure massage product. But really high percentages of shea butter are possible in cosmetic products. And so many companies use 5% or 10%. But, you know, bear in mind that if you're ever talking to a retailer or a manufacturer and you really want to promote your product to them, that, you know that it's not 1% or 2%. No, this is potentially 80%, 75%. Obviously, aqueous type products use less because you can't mix oil and water that easily. So, but you know, that's the kind of gives you a real good picture of the potential of this ingredient in cosmetics.
You're absolutely right, Andrew. We use a lot of our moisturizers are waterless formulations, so they are really highly concentrated. And for me specifically, that's where the efficacy of our products lie. I believe in the power and the healing power of shea butter, and that gives us actually quite moves into the nice slide really well about competitive landscape. One of the retailers that stocks our products actually insisted on me sending them a sheet to explain how much shea is in our product. That was really, really important to them. And when they saw the percentage, they were like, wow, okay, this is a differentiator. And we're stocked there now. So it's really, really important to us, brand owners, that our suppliers are able to provide not just shea butter, but quality shea butter.
Of course, yeah, exactly. And it's that authenticity. Here you are talking about shea butter, and maybe that particular customer or retail outlet wanted to sort of to see, well, how much are you using? And like, so authenticity, you are definitely, as they say, walking the talk with this. You know, it's totally an authentic story about your products and why you want to use shea butter. Yeah, so talking about the competitive spaces, the next section of our talk. So this is mainly focused on obviously the competitive space for suppliers of the shea butter ingredient. But of course, it also applies to everyone along the chain. Everyone is in competition, and you know, Shalom is in competition with hundreds and thousands of cosmetic companies. And so it's everywhere along the chain that is a competitive space. But I wanted to do a bit of a dive into the competitive space for the ingredient sector as it relates to shea butter and my observations of working with these ingredients over many years. So here is a graphic that is available in the documents that CBI produces for exporters to read about. It's a very simplified supply chain, and there are many options for this to get the shea butter into a cosmetic manufacturer. But I was looking at this. So here we have the 16 million collectors at the start of the chain, and it narrows down, in my experience, quite quickly. So there are a fewer numbers of people doing the export, fewer numbers doing the import, fewer numbers who are doing the refining if you want to use refined shea butter. And then it quickly goes the other way and balloons out. And there are many manufacturers now using shea butter. I mean, you find shea butter everywhere in so many types of cosmetic product, not only also in food, but in cosmetics. Like we said, many brands are using cosmetics, but you also find it in soaps and cosmetics. You find it everywhere. You even find it in toilet tissue. I mean, they use it a lot. It's such an important, interesting ingredient. So in the middle there, what I would say is there's a bottleneck between this, and so it's difficult to break that bottleneck. So there are challenges with entering the market. It's how to find companies who are manufacturing shea butter, how to get through to them when there's a lot of competition for you out here, how to find the refiners if you want to use refined butter, how to find the importers. There's a lot of competition, and so looking at this like a theoretical way as well, you've got this classical, very famous classical Porter's 5 forces diagram. We're not going to have a lecture on this today, but I want to point out a couple of highlights. It's composed of 5 areas. The threat of new entrants. Yeah, so what does that mean? It means how easily can competitors get into the market? Well, with shea butter, you can make shea butter relatively easily, and so quite a few people can get into this market. So there's always a threat of new entrants. So, in a way, the work that I do is to encourage more entrants into the market, and how to deal with the barriers that exist to break into the market. So that's what I do. So, but it can obviously pose a threat to other suppliers who are producing a similar product. So but ways of getting around that is customer loyalty. And the great example I can give from my own personal experience is that the Body Shop, for example, they are very loyal. As far as I don't work for them anymore, but when I was working for them, we were working with the women's groups who form part of the Tung Tea Association, and that was way back in 1995. And here we are today in 2023, and they're still working with Tung Tea Association, and they're still publishing a lot of information. Only last week there was an amazing video put out by the Body Shop on LinkedIn about their work with Tung Tea, and so this is talking 30 years. So that's loyalty for you. So that's an example that of what you could think about with your own strategies, how to develop great customer loyalty, and yeah, of course, great service. So you're basically irreplaceable. Yes, please chip in, Shalom.
Yeah, I was going to say, Andrew, you make a very good point. I mean, there's room for more entrants into the market. I think the key thing from a buyer's perspective, at least from my perspective, is the fact that my end products, I have to have something called an MSDS, a material safety data sheet that will show that my products are safe to use. And the only way I can achieve that really is by having quality products from suppliers who I can trust, from suppliers who have built or can build a great relationship with. And part of that relationship building is what you talked about, authenticity and transparency. You showed the funnel there in the previous slide. I would love to have transparency and visibility through the end-to-end supply chain. It's part of my brand story because the end users, my customers who are buying my products, are savvier than ever before. Customers now want to know not only what the product is about and what it does, they want to know where your ingredients come from. They want to know that you are actually your manufacturing processes. They want to know that your suppliers are ethical. It's really that simple. So once you tick all those boxes as a supplier, that customer loyalty is being built, and that's part of the great service that you're talking about.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Shalom. Yeah. So then we're talking about the other aspect of a competitive space is how easy is it for a company like Shalom to switch to another ingredient, a substitute? Now, in the case of oils and fats, actually at a technical level, there's no reason why you can't use any oil and fat to make an emulsion to go into a cosmetic. So it's beholden upon the supplier to really make their product irreplaceable. You don't want to have substitutes. You don't want to make them interchangeable. You want to make it so unique and so desirable that when they use shea butter, they are going to use shea butter. And of course, that's where things like the supply chain, the sustainability, the traceability, all those elements come into play, so that they want to use shea butter, not just because it's a great cosmetic, but also because it has this great story attached to it. Then in the shea butter industry, what is the bargaining power of a buyer? Well, this says that buyers have greater bargaining power when their numbers are small and the number of suppliers or product is high. Well, there are many suppliers. It's the same for most ingredients around the world. There are the buyers have many choices available to them. So think about how, again, you can make yourself like more desirable to a buyer, not necessarily always going down the price route, but look at other areas of value that you offer to a customer. Then as a supplier, well, what is this is an area for you. You want to raise your bargaining power as high as possible. And although there might be, you know, to 800,000 tons of shea nuts collected every year, how can you have more power as a supplier in the relationship with your buyer? So again, these are areas strategically to think about to reduce the competition. I know there are probably many competitors here in the room with us today, but think about how you, as an individual company, can gain more power in your relationship with your customer. And then finally, yeah. So overall, what's a competitive rivalry? Well, you know, it's an obvious fact or statement that there's high competition when there's many companies of a similar size and power, and when customers can choose. And this applies whether you're a supplier of shea butter or whether you're a supplier of high quality cosmetics. There are still many choices for the consumer, and what companies, well, you and other companies, including Shalom's company, she wants to see repeat customers, don't you, Shalom? You want repeat customers, repeat business.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So one way to do that is to obviously to be look at your marketing. How much marketing do you do? What kind of campaigns do you have as a supplier of ingredients, and then we've already alluded to about differentiating your supply chain, focusing on sustainability and traceability. So that's a look at that element of the supply business, and now looking at opportunities for exporters. Well, this is more focused on, so what you have to do to create opportunities. So meet the basics, as Shalom has already mentioned: quality, reliability, great communications. Yeah.
I think, Andrew, if I can interject here, if you think about this the other way around and think about, yes, you know, as exporters, these are opportunities, but think about the customers that you're serving, these buyers that you're serving, of which, you know, I could potentially be one of them. What we're looking for really is the product itself, the shea butter, be it, like I said, refined or unrefined. What is the quality of it? Lower FFA, the peroxide value. What is the process of manufacture? I want to see your certificate of analysis. I want to understand the process that you go through. I also want to understand how you do business. Is it ethical? Is it sustainable? How are you impacting these 16 million rural African women who are collectors and rely on us as a source of income? What is the transparent chain there? And, you know, I'll keep talking about sustainability, ethical practices, ethical sourcing, because these are what my customers, my end users want to hear. And if I can tap into that value chain that you're bringing, then that builds that relationship really with yourselves as suppliers. So it is really, really important to take away traceability, business ethics, sustainability. What are you doing about this? Marketing, Andrew talked about. When I look at all your COA and all the information and all the data that a supplier provides, that's great, it ticks the boxes. But what do you look like? How are you marketing yourself? How are you telling the story of, you know, are you exploiting? Is child labor, health and safety? Do you take these things seriously? That is really, really important. And that's why I like the CBI programs, for example, because they certainly touch on those points and are able to support, you know, suppliers to be able to get to that quality, to that level that the Western world is looking for.
Brilliant. Yeah, thanks, Shalom. So now, and so to go into a bit more deeper dive again about your companies. I'll just give a quick intro here. So yeah, I mean, there's a focus on the customer, as Shalom has said. At the end of the day, if you don't focus on your customer, or even on your customer's customer, then you're not really going to see such a successful business. So over to you, Shalom, here with your strategy.
Thank you very much, Andrew. I have to look at things from my customer's perspective. Just as suppliers, you have to look at things from your customer's perspective. I have to provide goods, products that work for my customer, that my customers will purchase. And I have 3 types of customers, as you can see here. These are my customer segments. On the far left there, you have the nature and planet lover. This is a core for us. These are customers who are demanding clean and green products, natural products. They don't want products with preservatives or synthetic chemicals, parabens, etc. And they want to also know how the ingredients are sourced. They want to ensure that they're great business practices, that there's transparency and openness in our supply chain. They want products that are vegan and cruelty-free and sustainably packaged. So this is important. And because this is important to me as a buyer, it has to be important to you as a supplier, because the products that you're supplying to me have to tick these boxes for my customer. On the far right, you will see another segment of customers that we have is people with skin conditions looking to manage that with the power of nature, really. So that's one of the reasons why, like I said, that was my brand developed, because of my son's eczema. So again, I can only achieve that efficacy of my products through the use of quality shea butter. I use unrefined shea butter, but regardless of refined or unrefined, the quality is critical and is really, really important to give me the efficacy I'm looking for this customer segment. And in the middle there, these are my Harrods customers. This is the luxury beauty lover. These are the people who you see things like wrinkle reducing and anti-aging there. I tell you why they're there. They're there because shea butter has something called triterpenes. Triterpenes are natural occurring chemical compounds that reduce the destruction of collagen fibers. So when those are reduced, basically collagen boosting, it helps to reduce wrinkles and has anti-aging properties. It's really that simple. So these are the kind of customers that are looking for a beautifully packaged product and products that contain amazing ingredients that will have an impact on their skin. So as you can see, my types of customers here, my customers are therefore your customers.
Exactly.
Yeah, and these customers are very, very savvy. And when you look at the consumer preferences here, this is what they're looking for. In addition to a product that is beautifully packaged and looks beautiful, again, you keep hearing traceability. There's a lack of traceability, which has to be something that's to be taken seriously. That transparency in the supply chain. And for the beauty and cosmetic industry, we produce 120 billion units of unrecyclable plastic. My customers want to make sure that we're impacting that in some way. That's why we use glass jars. Labeling is very, very important. And I think Andrew mentioned this. In a saturated market, you have to do something unique, something different to stand out. And when you do, that's when you build that customer loyalty.
Thanks, Shea. Yes, and actually I mentioned these consumers are in a way your consumers. You have to appeal to them through, but obviously you don't do it directly. You do it through companies like Shalom. But Shalom, so always think about basically where does your product, whether it's just shea butter or another ingredient, relate to this particular kind of consumer preferences. And so based on all of that, then this is how Shalom sort of has her pillars for her business.
Yeah. And this is where you as suppliers are very, very important and a key part of a brand story. For my brand, Naturality Skincare, I've built this company on 3 strong pillars, very simple pillars. At the core pillar is products that harness the power of nature and that improve skin conditions, products that work, that are soothing and nourishing. At the end of the day, that's what customers are buying the products for. The second pillar is what I call planet hugging. It means that everything about my brand has to hug our planet. We talk about, you know, where we're going net zero, there's COP28, you know, everybody's talking about our planet, our environment. We also want to know that our suppliers are doing something about it. We're talking about deforestation. That is part of it. We want to see, what are you doing to replant trees? What are you doing to support the communities that are actually growing these trees or producing this? The third pillar is ethical sourcing, and that's simply how business is done. It's really about sourcing ethically and being able to prove that. It goes beyond skincare. How are you supporting, empowering, educating, creating employment, and developing communities? That is really, really important. Again, 16 million rural African women, I sing this like a song, who rely on this ingredient. What are you doing as suppliers to support those women? That should be part of your story. Because if it's part of your story, it becomes part of mine as a buyer.
Great, and then just to remind you all that, I mean, about how that works. So this is like, that's the bigger picture again. That's where Shalom has her attention on that aspect as well, but she's also got her attention on her suppliers. So this is like the key link in the chain. So none of this would work except that Shalom has got to find buyers, suppliers who meet her expectations.
Correct. Quality, transparency. I mentioned planet hugging already. People who are championing sustainability. Sustainability is not a fact. It's not just a word being thrown out there. It is actually not taking out of our planet what you can't give back. It's about having purpose and impact in our supplier's DNA. That supply chain has to be transparent.
Thank you. Now we have a question now for you, don't we, Thomas? Just to sort of ask the audience about a question about sustainability and what they're doing about it. I don't know whether whether you can launch that at this stage, or how does that work?
I'm going to ask Zemzem to launch the poll.
Okay, thank you.
Here's the poll. And to all people, we'll give you about a minute and a half to answer, please. The question is, which statement most closely describes your company when talking about sustainability?
Yeah, so the first one is, we have sustainability targets and we work towards them. Like, you're actively involved in this in a high level. The second option is, we have targets and we talk about them, but we're not doing much actual action towards them. The third one is, we talk about sustainability, so we haven't got targets, and we don't do much either. And the fourth one is, we don't know where to start with sustainability. And these are all based on my experience of working with a range of different companies in the range of programs that I work on. So, we'd just be really interested to know where you are in this continuum.
Yes.
And wherever you are is fine. It's a place to start from now on. Having heard from a retail company as well about what their expectations are.
About half of the audience has already filled in the poll.
Oh, fantastic! Thank you.
Let's wait a little bit more for some more people who are now still voting.
Okay.
Okay, so let's yeah, and now almost 60% has voted. So let's let's close the poll, Zemzem.
Thanks, Thomas.
And can you show the results? Yes. So everyone now
Okay.
sees the results. Well, what do you think of it, Andrew and Shalom?
Well, I think it's great that the majority of companies here in the room have got targets and they're actively working towards them. That's very encouraging. And then there are obviously a few companies who have targets but are not actively working towards them. And then, but in second place, yeah, we talk about sustainability, but we don't do much. I think that's a very honest response. Thanks for
Very
that.
honest.
Yeah.
I agree
What
with
do
you,
you think?
Andrew.
What do you think, Shala? What do you think? Yeah.
No, I totally agree with that. I like the fact that, you know, majority of the audience have sustainability targets and are working towards them. It is, I appreciate the transparency and honesty here. There is a lot of talk about sustainability, but sometimes people don't do much, not because they don't want to, but sometimes because they don't really know how and what to do.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's also that small percentage who don't know where to start, and I get that completely because it can be there's a lot, you know, a lot to do. There are a lot of areas to look at. The environment is a broad area, you know. I really get that. So yeah, but that's a very interesting result. Thank you very much, everyone, for taking part in that.
Okay, let's close.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. And then I'll go back to so that was talking about the. So the next slide is talking a little bit more in practical terms where you can think about your immediate customer. So finding buyers, but always bear in mind about the customer's customer or the retailer. So looking at which buyers you should. Yes,
just
go ahead.
breaking in a bit because I was already following the questions, and we got a lot of questions about it. How can I get into contact with European buyers? Where can I find European buyers? Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, great, Thomas. Oh, yeah, good. Okay, this is the section.
Can I just interject here, Andrew, very
yes,
quickly?
of course, Shalom. Yeah, of course.
I mean, having a business development background as well, I find that a lot of companies are very quick to like ask the question, where can I find the buyers? Can you give me buyers contacts, etc.? Can I go into trade shows? I just want to ask people to please proceed with caution, because you have one opportunity most of the time to make a good impression. When you do get in front of buyers, I do get a lot of information sent in my inbox all the time for people wanting to kind of suppliers, right? And what I find that they haven't done their homework. They don't know much about my brand and what my needs are. You can tell that they haven't got a business plan or business processes in place. They just have share, they want to sell. So before you dig into, I want to find buyers, once you find those buyers, you have one opportunity to make a good impression and build that loyalty that we talked about. So it's easy to ask the question, but the fact is, are you ready for it? Have you done your homework? Do you have the stuff that the buyers are looking for? Everything we've talked about in the last hour.
Great, absolutely spot on, Shalom. Yeah, but this is it's like you have one opportunity to make a good impression. So be prepared for your encounter with a buyer at a trade fair or wherever you meet them, online or even in a communication. Very good. So thinking about being prepared when you are prepared for that, and that's part of the CBI program. Actually, is very interesting because they're normally 5-year programs, and the first year is spent preparing and then making sure that the companies are well prepared, that they do have all the basics in place, the technical documentation, the marketing plan, the business plan. They have their costings worked out. They know how to negotiate and how to kind of converse. There is a particular language that we use in cosmetics, and it's like you have to learn that language. And so we spend the first year working with those companies on how to get that right. And then in the second year and the third year, And the fourth year, there are focused kind of market entry activities based on this. And we don't also just hand out lists of companies. You have to learn yourself. Part of this is a learning program, develop yourselves. So this information I'm going to show you doesn't give you any specific names, really. You have to go do the research and then be systematic in your research, and then think about how you're going to approach that particular company. So here's a long list of things which I'm going to cover very quickly right now. So you've got importers and manufacturers. First of all, who are you going to target? Are you going to sell to a retailer? Well, not many retailers actually buy ingredients. There are a few, like Lush, for example. And also Shalom's company. She buys ingredients. Well, she's more like a manufacturer, true. Importers, who are you looking at? Importers, or what level along the supply chain? So think about your customer. Then, yeah, you go to trade fairs. There are 3 mentioned there, one in the UK, one in France next year, and one in Munich most years. Look at catalogs. There's a lot of resources you can find with these final 5 points. You can find hundreds of potential buyers. But again, you don't want to blow it. You want to make sure that when you present it, it's like it's a wow presentation. I've got to go to the supplier, you know. Like Shalom said, these buyers receive 50 emails a day, maybe, from companies offering to sell their product. So you have to stand out from the crowd. So trade fairs, quickly moving on then. Go ahead, Shalom, please. Yeah.
I was just going to say, just reiterating the point that you made, Andrew. For me, it's back to basics. There's a saying that I love. It is better to be prepared and not have an opportunity than to have an opportunity and not be prepared. You always have to be prepared when that opportunity presents itself. And I think what the CBI program does is prepare you for that. So that once you're there in front of somebody, you completely blow them away. When you go in front of someone and think, oh, it's just a pricing game, it's not. There's so much more to it now. We've talked about the importance of this ingredient. We've talked about the high demand for it. There is room for many suppliers to supply lots of buyers, but you have to be prepared and you have to have your basics in place.
Yeah, very good, perfect. So these are those trade fairs I mentioned. These are active links. You've got in cosmetics, which is probably good to visit initially. It's obviously huge trade fair, totally focused on ingredients for cosmetics. SGS Formulate is a UK one. It's very specialized. If you exhibit there, you're going to meet a lot of manufacturers, and they're going to have real probing questions about your quality, about your traceability, your sustainability. And unlike in cosmetics, there's the massive trade fair with 8,000 or so many thousands of visitors. In SGS Formulate, there's no place to hide. Yeah, you've really got to be on your game when you go to a trade show like that. The same with cosmetics business. These small trade fairs, the people who walk by are serious players, and they want, as Shalom has also alluded to, they don't want to waste their time talking to people who are not ready for their particular market. And then BioFac, of course, mega organic food fair with a small section for cosmetics as well. So that's also a possible interest. And then other trade fairs, like in Italy, they do some ingredients and also organic certified cosmetic products. Trade fairs. And your biggest, you can look at the associations. There are so many associations related to cosmetics Europe, the CTPA, for example, the IKW, in Poland as well, the Polish Association, and also in Spain. All of these associations, you can find members on there who are importers of cosmetics. Spain even is one of the biggest. If you look at the data from ITC, Spain is a big importer of shea butter. So it's quite competitive also, but that's also a big market. Other associations are related to the European Federation of Cosmetic Ingredients. It's a big organization. Many big important players are part of this association. There are 140 manufacturers across Europe of ingredients. Then you have a national level, and these are all the national level associations. And most of them, you can actually get to the members. Some you can't get to the members lists. Sometimes they're written in, like, they're written all in German or all in French, and so you have to use a translation tool to work out if you don't speak that language. Many organizations, associations you can contact. Another source certifies. These certifiers publish who is certified. So the UEBT, for example, has got its list of members. Many of those members could well be potential customers for you. So check out who their members are. Equally, the Fair for Life Standard publishes all the members. Natru has got a list of companies who subscribe to their standards. You can, it's available to look at, and these are all potential customers for you. Cosmos, of course, is another one, another certification scheme, and you can see who is certified with them, and these could be possible customers for you, or maybe you're also going to be on the Cosmos database yourself. What's important about all this is to be systematic, in your research. Don't just go to the internet one day and spend an hour looking around and then you forget where you've been, Be systematic. So you create a document that will track your activities, who you see, like which company, what products are they selling? Are they their own products or are they distributed by somebody else? I mean, a manufacturer of shea butter is unlikely to be a customer for a manufacturer of shea butter. So what's their role in the supply chain? Who are their customers? What do they sell what I sell? I mean, it's not always a bad thing. I mean, if they don't sell what you sell, that's an opportunity to talk to them. And then you work out a conclusion. Is this a customer, a competitor, both, or no further action? But track what you do. It's also, when you go back after 6 months, you can see exactly what you've done. And that's also, it helps you kind of manage a systematic, organized business. And then you can work out from here, what is your pitch? So I'm a new supplier, I've got a new product, etc., etc. These are certain examples you could refer to. And then, as Shalom says, make sure you can back all this up with experience, with practice, with preparation for the market. So, a couple of points here. If you find a company that looks like it will be a good match for your business, contact them immediately. Don't wait. Oh no, I've got to find 10 more companies today before I contact them. No, don't think like that. If you find a good company, get on the line and be ready to have your information ready to talk to them, and be open-minded about opportunities. And don't be put off from contacting big or small companies. You don't know what goes on. Well, a big company, that's too big for me. You never know what a company is thinking. So, write to them. And they may say no, but they may say maybe, or they may say no. The other sources that we've mentioned, this program today, this webinar today is put on by CBI. These are business support organizations. There are others like ITC, IPD, SIPO, and the United Nations, UNIDO. These organizations have a mission to help companies like yours be successful in international markets. So now we're coming to wrap up the conclusions for this webinar today. So shea butter, as you've heard, is an amazing cosmetic ingredient with a long history of traditional use. And these kind of things tick the boxes. These get people who work in marketing in cosmetic companies excited. As we've heard, there are more than 800,000 tons of shea nuts collected by over 16 million women from like 2 billion shea trees that are growing naturally and wild. So this must make it possibly the most important and interesting wild ingredient in cosmetics. We've just seen data that the consumer demand for shea butter is growing, and we can extrapolate from there that, or make an assumption that that also relates to shea butter and to cosmetics. And we've heard that also from a company that sells shea butter products. This creates opportunities for new suppliers to get into that market because it's growing rapidly. But at the same time, it's also great for existing suppliers. They can see their market growing. the other conclusion is a lot of competition, yeah, among suppliers and across the final product brands. Most companies use refined butter, but this creates a bottleneck due to a concentration of refining services. So, but other companies don't use refined shea butter. It's like, and Naturally Tribal is one such company. So, you know, be open-minded about that as well. Don't always assume that it has to be refined. You can find companies who make product using unrefined shea butter. And in the future, we're starting from today really, future suppliers of shea butter will need to pay even greater attention to traceability, ethics, and sustainability, as well as, of course, the basics of quality, reliability, and transparency. So be prepared about that. And then finally, we come with a few recommendations for you. Recommendation number 1, establish traceability, sustainability, and business ethics goals, and work towards those goals and be transparent with your stakeholders about your progress. Promote the benefits of shea butter to your customers and your customers' customers all the way along the chain to the consumer. Ultimately, it's companies who make the product who have to sell to a consumer, and the consumer is savvy, as Shalom has said. So think about how you can communicate to the consumer, and with today's social media systems, you can communicate with the consumer, as well as obviously provide the basics and the other requirements of your customer. Here's a big idea: invest in more shea butter refining opportunities, operations in the country of origin. It is possible to think about selling refined butter. It is the most popular choice amongst most cosmetic companies, but there are bottlenecks in that supply chain. Thinking about competitivity or competition, reduce opportunities for manufacturers to substitute shea butter with other oils and butters. You know, shea butter is Africa's gold, someone said today. Wow, yeah. Make sure they know that, so they don't want to, they can't substitute it with something else. Increase opportunities and reasons for manufacturers and brands to use more shea butter, whether it's refined or unrefined or other derivatives made from shea butter. Really look at how you can give good reasons why a manufacturer and also with a branded cosmetic product should be using more and more shea butter. So that completes our talk today. We've now got the session on questions and answers. So I'll hand it over to you then, Thomas. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Shalom, for this wonderful presentation. Yeah, during the presentation we got a lot of questions already.
Okay.
Some of them I answered in writing, but there are also many questions who are really for you. So I have this first question for you, I think, Shalom. How does her company ascertain the quality of shea butter? Does she test each batch, and how?
Very good question, actually. Very good question. We invest because, you know, remember I said to you about the high percentage of shea butter that we use. So the quality is really, really important. And the two major parameters that people tend to look at is the FFA and peroxide value, right? So particularly the FFA. So we actually sort of multi-test, taking different samples from a particular batch and actually get it tested just to make sure that they are within the right parameters. Some companies have their in-house laboratories, but everybody knows, you know, internationally recognized laboratories where you can get the certificate of that, really. For me, the right quality is really, really important because it is my bread and butter for my customers, and it is the reputation of my company. So making sure that we get it tested to make sure it fits the parameters that we need is very, very important, and is a core part of our ability to work with a particular supplier. I'm a control freak, so I just want to make sure that it's absolutely right.
And also, most buyers are also control freaks. They're heavily focused on risk and avoiding risk. I mean, yeah, right. I mean, it's once Shalom has made a product, or any company has made a product on the market, I mean, trying to fix it when it's already out there, you can't redo that, and you end up wasting a lot of money. So it's like, it's like really you have to pay attention to detail, be a real detail focused person when it comes to your quality. Thanks, thanks, Thomas.
Thank you very much. So we also got a couple of questions about the export price per ton. And somebody said with that, because that feeds back to whether it's worthwhile for both the exporter and in turn the community in terms of real economic value. So yeah,
okay.
What is the export price per ton, and is it
well, I mean, the export price per right. Well, one way to do that is to look at the ITC data and do a simple. You can divide the value by the quantity to get a price per kilo. Yeah, that's at the kind of the export level. That's one way of doing it. I mean, the other way of doing it, which is as alluded to by in the question, is actually you've got to know what it costs to make shea butter. Yeah, if you don't, I mean, I know it's difficult with a commodity type product or when there's massive volumes and you're under pressure from a buyer to reduce your price, but really make sure you know what your costs are, and that you are as much as possible a price maker rather than a price taker, and look at how you can provide the most value. So look at what you provide. If you're just simply offering them something, here's my price, and you're limited in, or you're limiting your customer service, or the perception from the buyer is that there's quite a high risk, then your price could well be just too high because they don't see the value for them. Don't forget that at the end of the day, the pricing is obviously very, very important. Yeah, and buyers are, their DNA is to fish around for the best possible price, but they're also looking for the best possible value as well. I mean, a fair trade buyer is buying at a higher price than another buyer who doesn't buy fair trade. So for some reason, and you can work out yourself, for them, they're happy to pay the fair trade price because they can pass the price on to the consumers who are also looking for something like a higher value product. They don't want to see people paid a rock bottom minimum wage. That's not a living wage. That doesn't work with most companies. And so the answer to your question is, like, you can look at some data like ITC, and then you should look at your own costs and work out where you are, and you put on you add a typical margin to that price, and you go to market with that price, and you then sort of negotiate with the buyer about that, and you know how much you can go down or how much, what your limits are, because you've got a good understanding of what your real costs are. I don't know, Shalom buys shea butter. I mean, I mean, if we want to add something, Shalom, to that, or
No, I think you've covered majority of it. I think it's about looking at process efficiency as well. I know there's currency fluctuations, et cetera, within countries. So I think it's looking at one's efficiencies and making sure that you're competitively priced compared to what the market is stating at the time. I knew that question about price would come up, Thomas. I knew it was going to come up, really. It's about people doing their homework as well, because the price would change over seasons, and over 1 year it might be a different price, and another year might have gone up, et cetera, et cetera. It's about being vigilant and keeping an eye out on it, and knowing your costs. Knowing your cost is so critical. People focus on how much can I sell it for, but actually knowing what your cost is and streamlining it actually makes it easier.
Totally.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Thanks,
we're already
Thanks,
a bit over time, so I will do a couple of more questions, and I have this question for Shalom. Which actions do you take to ensure ethical sourcing? How do you provide traceability and transparency?
That's a wonderful question.
We'll answer that in a few minutes.
Yeah, I can do. One of the ways in which we do that, if you go on our site, you will see actually showing our customers visually, the companies that we work with in Nigeria, the communities. I've gone out there and I've done training myself on health and safety. We're able to actually, hopefully, be able to tell you the regions where the nuts come from, where that produces the butter that we use. Training, female empowerment, supporting the women as well in the local areas. So there's so many activities that we do to support communities, and looking at practices as to how the production is done and the processes that the companies have. There's so many parameters that we have and so many things we do to make sure that we can actually not only trace our ingredient back to source, when we talk about source to jar, that's one of our pillars, but also how we as human beings support the communities that actually where this comes from.
Okay, thank you. So then I think, yeah, we're going to do the last question. We have, this is not really a question, but I will make a question out of it. Somebody is saying, can we talk about fair trade certifications? This is the first step we made in promoting sustainability. So yeah, maybe what kind of certifications are recommended for sheabutter when exporting to Europe?
Okay, I can answer that one, Thomas. So yeah, I mean there are a wide range of certifications available. Not every company that has a supply chain with shea butter is using certification, but certification does give you that kind of third-party accreditation. So obviously there is fair trade as an option. There is then Natru and Cosmos. These are all possible areas. Eco-cert for organic as well. So, but there's also a cost. Yeah, there's a cost to certification, which you have to consider when it comes, because that will add to the price of your ingredient and it might price you out. There is a lot of shea butter that's sold on the market that has great stories and great evidence and doesn't have certification. So it's not an actual hard requirement. Yeah, you have to really think about first of all, contact these organizations, find out the actual costs for you as a supplier, and then of course you've got to find customers who also buy into your certification. There's no point in having organic certification if you can't find any buyers who want to buy organic. You've got an expensive product that nobody wants to buy. So really, I mean, certification does have a value, but I would say it's a business decision ultimately. And right now, there's a powerful story about. I mean, shea butter has such a powerful story about it right now with the supply chain, the women's involvement. To really look at whether you need certification, whether your buyers are asking for certification. When it comes to ethics, I always recommend that companies look at the SEDEX model. SEDEX is a low cost entry self-audit system. It gives you some good questions to ask yourselves about your ethical practices in various areas of ethics. That's a good starting point for sustainability. And you can then at a later stage move along to having it third-party audited, but you could start with a self-assessment of where you are.
And if I could just add really quickly to that, Thomas, it's really about a lot of companies go gung-ho and they think, oh, we're going to get certified for everything because that's what international companies are looking for. You can provide evidence. You can actually prepare. Look at the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. There are things within that you can impact within your organization. And evidence is really, really important. Evidencing what you're doing, recording what you're doing. Companies love to see that. You don't have to go straight away gung-ho. It costs a lot of money and it will add to your cost.
Yeah, okay, that's a good tip as well, Shalom, thank you. So we're going to close this webinar for this. I hope you all enjoyed it, and I will like to thank Shalom and Andrew for giving this presentation. has been very interesting for me as well, and I hope for all of the audience. There were a lot of practical tips included as well. And least of all, we will send you this presentation later on, and a link to a recording of this presentation will be on our website and will be sent to you. And also check our website, because we have this study on sheabutter as well. Exporting sheabutter to Europe has 2 parts: market potential and market entry. So then you can see everything about exporting sheabutter in our studies as well. Thank you all. Nice to see you in our future webinars.